Welcome to Pensare Basketball Live. The Toronto Raptors got some very, very bad news yesterday as Scottie Barnes left the court, screaming in pain, writhing on the ground, saying, "I can't feel my foot. I can't feel my foot." I didn't see that in real time, but turns out, looked at the video, and yes, he does in fact say that. A lot of people speculated, unfortunately, that Scottie had potentially a Lisfranc injury or a midfoot injury, which would require a ton of time off. Of course, the X-rays were negative. Scottie Barnes, of course, went to bed last night. Apparently, spoke to Garrett Temple, was in good spirits generally. But the thing with ankle sprains and rolled ankles is you really don't know until the next day. And Scottie Barnes knew this morning when he woke up that he had suffered something pretty severe because he was in a walking boot, and also there was a lot of swelling and he was limping around practice today. What does this mean for the Toronto Raptors? That's one thing that we're going to talk about. Is what does this Scottie injury mean? What could the timeline look like? We'll speculate a little bit. They're going to do further imaging tomorrow, probably an MRI, and then hopefully nothing further will be discovered. But this does not look like a grade 1 ankle sprain, which could be like couple of days, to a week. This looks to be a little bit more severe. If I had to estimate right now, the timeline on Scottie, given that he usually comes back a little earlier than the timeline, would be anywhere from 2 to 5 weeks, depending on what the MRIs say tomorrow. Immanual Quickley has not been cleared for practice, so that's another bit of a blow for the Raptors, who had speculated that Immanual Quickley would be back mid-December. And, just like that, it feels like this was the week, right? The Toronto Raptors have a bit of a soft schedule. They're not really in, well, they're not in at all the in season tournament. And so, with 2 games over 9 days, this was the time that you were supposed to be able to get healthy, maybe get Bruce Brown back, maybe get Emmanuel Quickley back. And then with a slightly tough schedule, starting with Brooklyn and so on. So, I mean, again, a flash schedule on here without the 2 additional games on, just so we have a clear idea and reiterate what the Raptors schedule is. It is Brooklyn, so it's Miami, then Chicago. So go to Miami, face Chicago at home, and then you have Brooklyn, Houston, New York, Memphis, Atlanta, Boston, right? That's your schedule for the rest of the year. That is a really tough schedule. Would have been a tough schedule with Scottie Barnes. It's now looking like pull the plug type of schedule without Scottie Barnes. And it's worth noting that the Raptors have a 2-9 record in games Scottie does not play. It's also worth noting they have a 2-11 record in games Scottie does not finish. Because as you'll recall, there were 2 games, specifically yesterday against New York, and then also the game against Denver, in which when Scottie went out, you were up by at least 5 points in both situations. You were up 5 against New York yesterday in the third quarter when he went out, and you were up 6 against Denver when he, suffered that injury, and then ultimately they scored on the other end and made it 4. So this looks tough. This is not necessarily hope is lost. There's a lot of positives happening for the Toronto Raptors right now. This is not a, oh, it's about Scottie or nothing else. There's a lot of positives happening for the Toronto Raptors right now. Specifically, I think what Jacoby Walter showed yesterday was something phenomenal. And I'm just here to announce that I'm about to do a Jacoby Walter film breakdown of his mid-range scoring. And that's probably going to drop at some point this week. We have a bit of a softer schedule, so there's not going to be as many post-game lives, but that doesn't mean that there's not going to be a lot of content around Pensare Basketball Land. Certainly, we'll use this time to get deeper into film study. And overall, we'll answer this question. This is just all the talk around Raptorland today. Is Scottie Barnes injury prone? The thing with me is that I don't know how to hide my emotions when it comes to really stupid things being said, right? Like if something really dumb is said in front of me, I usually snap and I say something like, "This is incredulous, this is stupid, this is ridiculous," or I'll get myself canceled and say what I really think. But the truth is, Scottie is not injury prone. Scottie has suffered quite a few, freak injuries. And like the Joel Embiid stepping on his foot in his rookie season, there was that, but he played over 70 games in his rookie season. He's been relatively good, man. Last year, he sustained, an injury, which was a freak injury with Immanuel Quickley. This year, I would argue the Nikola Jokic thing. If the Nikola Jokic and Immanuel Quickley things don't happen, you're not even talking about this. So it's really stupid. I'm gonna be honest, like Dave, no offense to you and to the hundreds and hundreds of people who've been sort of parroting this point, but I'm here to squash it. Scotty is not injury prone. Okay, Scotty is a very active player. He often leads the league, is top five in the league in distance traveled. He's a very big player who unfortunately, is very active, right? Big players who are active will often, end up in situations where they're going to be, in the mix of things, right? He's extremely floppy with his movements, right? You could say he's a little careless with his movements, but I don't think he's injury prone. For a player to be injury prone to me, there needs to be some sort of element of Daniel saying, "Bro, I'm a fan of yours, but I'm gonna keep it a buck. These your fans just asking question, man. No need to call a genuine question stupid. If I think something is stupid, then I'm gonna call it stupid, you know? And again, it's not this is not the first time I'm hearing this today. This has literally been the talk all around Twitter today. Is Scottie Barnes injury prone? It's like narratives run amok when not challenged. I think that it's really important to put things into context. I'll give you the best example of this, and I'll try to, refrain from, being overly animated and breathy when I say this. If you get into 6 collisions on the highway, you are probably a very careless driver. If you park your car in 3 different parking lots and you get rear-ended, you're not accident prone, you're just deeply unlucky, right? Like, I think Scotty is just an extremely active player and, he has big feet, he's a big body, and sometimes he's gonna jump into things and, I'm surprised he doesn't get injured more often than he does, right? He's just, again, he's not his game is not finesse. It's very brutish. And we're seeing injuries up across the league. It's up like 33%. Star players are missing a ton of things. So I'm gonna say this. I don't believe that a player is injury prone until I see a chronic element to their injury history. Okay. So, for instance, and I also say that I don't think a player is injury prone until I see a reason for their injuries. So, either this could be genetic, this could be, some sort of degenerative condition where like constant load on the knee is creating ankle, etc. issues, back. There's certain players that have a chronic issue with their knee. So it's always knee, 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 and you start seeing the same injury popping up: left knee, left knee, left knee. Could his ankles be a little bit tender? He did suffer an ankle injury in, I don't want to say grade 10, and it's come up like 4 or 5 times where he's grabbed his ankle. There was that entire stretch in his second year where we saw him limp off the court, come back, limp off the court, come back a few times, where he's constantly like rolling his ankle a little bit. He does this a lot. Like he rolls his ankle a lot. Maybe he needs to strengthen his ankles a bit. But I'm not willing to call a player injury prone because injury prone means something else to me. Okay. So that's where I say you got to chill, because when you start assigning that narrative to a player, like they're soft, they're injury prone, they're not a hard worker, etc. These things tend to carry, and sometimes these reputations are not earned, and sometimes they are earned. When you start saying a player is a choker because they miss one shot in the clutch, maybe that's not earned. But now every single time that player comes up short in a big situation, you're like, that's the choker. You know what I mean? DeMar, DeFrozen, all that stuff. So I just think I try to fight back against any narrative that is not properly earned. Okay. So if there's work ethic issues with a player, I'm not denying that certain players do have work ethic issues and don't take their craft very seriously. But I take an issue with, you take a player who is very hardworking and then tell them that they have work ethic issues. It's the same thing with, a player who's injury prone. I think a player who's injury prone is Zion Williamson. I think there's clear gait issues there. There's clear chronic issues. There's weight issues. There's probably a genetic component to it. Lonzo Ball, LaMelo Ball, clearly there is some sort of injury proneness there. Players like that, right? But is Franz Wagner injury prone? No, I don't think so. Is Evan Mobley injury prone? And look at how much time Evan Mobley's missed. I don't think these guys are injury prone at all. If anything, I think Scotty's like Wolverine. Like he recovers from injuries way faster than he should in general. So I don't know. Michael Jordan had a huge injury early in early in his career. Steph Curry had a lot of ankle issues early on in his career, to the point where I think those people got, like Steph Curry specifically got labeled injury prone because it was just always his ankles, ankle over time. So Winegum saying, so his playstyle leads to injuries, but he himself isn't. Yeah, like if you're a human crash test dummy, if you're constantly diving for things, if you're constantly in a congested paint, you know what I mean? Like there's a lot of issues with the Raptors. Like you don't understand, the Raptors spacing is awful. So the paint is always congested on both sides. That is going to lead to a higher frequency of injuries. Like this is just logical, right? I mean, think about what I'm saying. The way the Boston Celtics play, is that more prone to injuries? Like, would you be more likely to get injured playing in Boston, or would you be more likely to get injured playing in Cleveland? You'd definitely be more likely to get injured in Cleveland because the paint is always packed. There's always congestion. So when there's congestion, there's not enough space. You're navigating tighter angles. You're probably going to get contested a lot more at the rim because Jared Allen and Evan Mobley are there. So if you're not coming down on their foot, you're probably going to come down on your own foot, or you're going to come down on the opposing player's foot, or you're going to get smashed across the face because the paint is always congested. So it's not a secret that the Raptors have spacing issues across the board. They do. And they've had spacing issues literally since Scottie's rookie season. If you get some more spacing around, I'll guarantee you the paint won't be as congested. It will make some of the congestion issues, which lead to a lot of these injuries. If you really want to look at Scottie's injuries in general, apart from the freak injuries, a lot of it has been because of congested paint. Go look how many times he drives into the paint, and there's like 4 or 5 players, in the paint right there. Well, the paint is only so big, and you yourself are a huge human being. Now you're adding even more space. You have huge feet on top of huge feet. Chances of going up and falling on someone's foot. It's just, yeah. I've seen a lot of players who are injury prone. I don't think Scottie's one of them, but cool. If you want to have that belief, that's perfectly fine. I think overall, what does this mean for the Toronto Raptors? I think this means, youth and development. And man, you have some really good young players on this team. I'm going to do something really cool here where we're going to play a game right now. So before we end off the what should the Raptors do with their season, which is going to be the last segment of this live. This is not going to be a super overly long live. We're going to play a game called Whose Shot Chart Is This? And I want you all to guess whose shot chart this is. And the first right answer is going to get flashed onto the screen. Okay, let's do this. So, whose shot chart is this? I totally forgot to mention DJ Carton was waived. So, yes, that is true. Okay. All righty, let's start. Okay, so first up, this former Minnesota Gopher has been a revelation for the Raptors. Whose shot chart is this? Now, to explain shot charts in general, and I apologize if I'm a little bit laggy here. To explain shot charts, let me just see if I can just make myself disappear. Yes, I can. Perfecto. Okay, so in order to understand this properly, league average, above league average is considered green. Relatively close to league average is going to be yellow, and significantly or below league average is going to be red. So whose shot chart is this? Liam saying battle. You are correct. Let's go up to the next one. Okay. This Toronto Raptor doesn't have a contract for next year. Whose shot chart is this? Any guesses? Tetrahedron said Ochai. Nope, it was not. But good guess. There we go. Liberal with Davion. That is correct. That is Davion Mitchell shot chart. Okay. So now this one is a little bit tricky. This Toronto Raptor is considered a good scorer. Whose shot chart is this? Any guesses? I promise it's not Davion Mitchell. Key M, correct. Alexander B, correct. Okay, let's try. This Raptor likes cereal. Who is this? Who he shoot for? we're playing the TNT game. Who he play for? This is who he shoot for. Who is this? Is the most obvious. This is by far the most obvious. Yes, it is. It is Jakob Pertl indeed. Okie dokie. Okay. This Toronto Raptor is wildly inconsistent. Now, who is this? Any guesses? Liam is correct. Big Papa, Navin the Rapper. Oh, we'll definitely get into what these shot charts mean in a moment. Okay. The bonus, this ex Toronto Raptor hates analytics, and their shot chart really shows how much they hate analytics. Well, I mean, speak for everyone not named Jameson Battle, who is frigging awesome. Liberals saying Van Vliet. Yo, Fred Van Vliet wishes he shot like this inside the arc. Come on now. Nah, that's DeMar DeRozan. You are correct. You are correct. Fred Van Vliet don't shoot like that in the paint. Come on, man. Okay. This Toronto Raptor takes a lot of threes. Who is this? I'm going to tell you right now, this player had a lot of people very confused. I think a lot of people got this wrong. Who is this? Who dis? Chris Boucher. Nope. Key M Grady. You know what's funny? Okay, so here's the killer. This is the best part. Okay, these shot charts are great because they remove a lot of the context from this. So when I ran this poll on Instagram, wow, how am I on one bar and I'm wired into Ethernet connection? Yo, Rogers is really tripping right now. It's really bothering me. Okay, so when I ran this poll, let me know if my audio is lagging right now, guys. Sorry about that. Gary Trent Jr. is not on this team. Tetrahedron saying Grady or Boucher, OG, JYT. Oh my God. No, this is a current Raptor. Okay. So the correct answer is this. It is Scottie Barnes. What is hilarious about this is that for all intents and purposes, when I ran this poll on Instagram, so far, most people think this is Grady Dick, which I thought was amazing. If you could look at Scottie Barnes' shot chart as a rookie, you would not confuse it with Grady Dick. The fact that you are confusing his fourth year shot chart with Grady Dick is also all kinds of impressive to me, at least. Okay. And this Toronto Raptor is a good dancer. Who is this? This is also very confusing for people. People did not get this correct. Jesus Shuttlesworth. Nope. I have turned off my Wi-Fi. Navin the rapper just getting everything right. Or is it Naveen the rapper? Danish saying Bruce Brown. Bruce Brown hasn't played this year, man. Yeah, it is Grady. This is Grady Dick's shot chart, which is pretty awesome. Jaden saying Jacoby. Nope, this is Grady Dick. 108 threes attempted. Jacoby wishes he's attempted 108 threes. And also, Jacoby wishes he was shooting this well from three. Jacoby is not shooting well from three. Okay. So, yeah. Okay. And this was also a really interesting from Crafted. This is the 12 most inconsistent basketball players in the NBA this year. Anything sticking out to you? Number 1, Fred VanVleet. Number 10, Dennis Schroeder. I mean, for real. Like, I talk shit about so many of these players. It is actually great to just quantify why I talk so much shit about them. I've talked endless shit about Fred, endless shit about D'Angelo Russell, endless shit about Anthony Simons, endless shit about Jalen Green, and endless shit about Dennis Schroeder, and endless shit about Russell Westbrook. Interestingly enough, though, I don't feel I talk shit about Stephon Castle at all. I don't feel like I talk shit about RJ Barrett. So it's a really mixed bag. But these are very polarizing players across the league. And they're polarizing for a reason. It's because they are the most inconsistent players in the league. Now, the final thing I will point to on X, which is, you know, if you're not following Pensare Basketball on X, what are you waiting for? Pensare B-Ball on X, growing off. Davion Mitchell made some pretty big headway saying he is the best defender in the NBA. Let me just read this entire thing out via Josh Lewinberg. I love the defensive end. I feel like I'm the best defender in the league. Honestly, off ball or on ball, I just feel like that's who I am. Okay, perfecto. So, it's great to have confidence. It really is. It's friggin' awesome to have confidence. And let me just remove this and let me see if I am lagging and I should be fine. Okay, so I thought about this a lot and I'm like, okay, Davion had a lot to say today. A lot to say today. He went on a little bit of a press tour today, and he had a really good positive game yesterday. So I just want to show y'all some numbers here and let me just pull myself off the screen again. And yeah, for real, for real, for real. But I just want to show y'all something really quick. Hang on. So I think credit where credit is due. Oh, this was hilarious. I would like to shine some positive light on Davion Mitchell, who put up his first positive box plus minus game in 10 games. These are his last 10 games, 11 games in terms of box plus minus. If you can read that out, that's -7, -8.4, -12.4, -10.2, -9.9, -7.3, -7.6, -6.3, -11.5, -9.8, and then the turnaround, the season. It's coming, man. The Davion Mitchell is about to become a half decent player. Arc starts with one game, and he has, for all intents and purposes, he has been positive box minus in 3 total games so far, including that great game he had against Sacramento, and then of course last night where he made 3 out of 4 shots and was very, very competent overall defensively. But I want to explore this idea that Davion was, the best defender in the NBA because I read the quoted tweets and it was a mixed bag. Okay, it was a very mixed bag of people saying, well, I don't know if he's top, but he's top 5, he's top 10. And I really hope GMs around the league feel this way. I sincerely doubt they do. Otherwise, the Kings would have gotten a lot more for him. But here are 32 defenders, in my opinion, that are better than Davion Mitchell. And I gave myself 2 minutes to come up with this list. Let me know where I'm wrong if you watch these players. If you don't watch these players, please don't tell me I'm wrong. Just go watch them and then come back and tell me if I'm wrong. Okay. So Herb Jones, Jalen Suggs, Jonathan Isaac, Drew Holiday, Giannis Antetokounmpo. Did I even list Jason Tatum? Oh, thank God I did. Okay. Giannis Antetokounmpo, Alex Caruso, Cason Wallace, Victor Wembanyama, OG Anunoby, Keon Ellis, Dyson Daniels, Jason Tatum, Scottie Barnes, Walker Kessler, Joel Embiid, Amen Thompson, Asar Thompson, Bilal Coulibaly, Lou Dort, Isaiah Hardenstein, Chet Holmgren, Tumani Kamara, Franz Wagner, Draymond Green. Did I put Draymond Green twice? No, I didn't. Okay, good. Draymond Green, Andrew Wiggins, Tari Eason. I would probably throw Jabari Smith in there, but sure. Bam Adebayo, Denny Avdia, Peyton Watson, Paul George, Kawhi Leonard, Dylan Brooks, Jaden McDaniels. I really, really don't believe that it would take long for me to get to about 65. I think if you gave me about 10 minutes, I would get to 65 to 70 names pretty easily. So, where are we with the Davion stuff? I honestly don't care. I want him to think he's the best defender. He needs that kind of confidence. You should think you're good. I do think that it's you know this does point to why he is where he is though. I think for the most part, like competent is right. Sure. Yo, I didn't even list Jared Allen, who might be the best defender on the Cavs. I didn't mention Davion Mitchell. I don't even think he's the best Mitchell in the league. Aaron Wiggins, sorry, is it Aaron Mitchell? Aaron Wiggins, a pretty good defender. Najee Marshall. There's so many good defenders in the NBA. The idea that he thinks he's one of the best, cool, man. Cool, cool. That's fine. No Gary Payton. That's this. Is this list on ball, off ball, or both? It's both. It's both. Defense is played, throughout. Now, I'll highlight a play from last night that I think really paints and puts home what I think. And if I'm being completely honest, I don't think he's a top 3 defender on this team because I think Jonathan Mobo, Scottie Barnes, and Ochai Agbaji are better. That's just me. Ochai is close. Mobo is not close. Mobo is way better. I think Jacoby Walter is going to be close maybe by year's end. So really, that's where I sit on him. You're a top 5 defender on one of the 5 to 7 worst teams in the league on defense. Cool. Yesterday, there was a play where Jakob Poeltl got switched on to OG Anunoby. Unfortunately, that meant that Davion Mitchell was the low man in that situation, which meant he was guarding the paint, which means the paint was open. And RJ Barrett sinks 7 feet off of Karl Anthony Towns, which naturally leads to an OG Anunoby pass. We broke down the play pretty extensively. I thought that play displayed perfectly why a guy like a Jalen Suggs is so valuable, right? It explains why a guy like OG Anunoby defensively is so valuable. You know, when you come down to the NBA, like the game of the NBA, it's all about trade offs, right? There are certain shooters where you're going to live with them shooting threes. We saw this with OKC and Dallas last year. We might see this with OKC and Dallas tonight. I'm really looking forward to the in-season tournament tonight. But OKC and Dallas is an interesting thing because last year Mark Daigneault pretty much dared PJ Washington to shoot. And PJ Washington's a much better shooter than half our team, if not more than half our team, right? They dared him to shoot because they wanted to pack the paint against Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving penetration. I think that this is very important to realize that the Toronto Raptors just have terrible spacing. They have terrible spacing offensively. They have terrible balance defensively. They're a very leaky team all over the place. So there's a lot of growth, which I think puts me into a very good transition towards what's next for the Toronto Raptors. A lot of growth, frankly, a lot of growth. And I'm going to say this. I hope I'm not being insensitive when I say this. Obviously, y'all who know me know that Scottie is one of my favorite players. He is my favorite player in the NBA. So I mean no disrespect when I say that this injury could be a blessing in disguise for everyone involved, specifically the Toronto Raptors. I look down at this team and I see a lot of really positive role players, guys who could turn into phenomenal sixth men, seventh men on a contender. I'm not saying Jonathan Mobo could be a seventh man on Washington. I'm saying he could be a seventh guy on a contender, maybe as early as year 3. So when you look how ahead of the curve guys like Ochai has been a phenomenal revelation this year. Just a two-way impact, the the rim defense, some of his, like, I thought he was great on Jalen Brunson last night. I think he was a huge, huge part of what went right for the Raptors against Jalen Brunson last night. And Ochai is a really decent defender. Is he a lockdown defender? Is he Herb Jones? No, he's not. Herb Jones, Alex Caruso, Keon Ellis, but he's whatever the hell the next step down from that is, right? He's not Tony Allen, right? He's not like that type of defender, but is he at least as good a defender as Jaylen Brown? He's pretty close, man. So he could compete. Ochai can be a part of a top 5 defense easily. He just can't be the best defender on a top 5 defense. Scottie, I think, could be like the second best defender on a top 5 defense. So you have 2 pieces at least defensively that kind of scale and work. Jonathan Mobo could be, in my opinion, in his prime, like the second or third best defender in a top 5 defense. So again, cumulatively, you're putting up together the pieces. Jacoby Walter, another one who can be a very competent player. I think Jamison Battle can participate in a very good defense. I think Ulrich can participate, if not anchor, a really good defense someday. He's still far away from it. And Jamal Shed competes defensively. I think Jamal Shed has a lot in common with Davion. He's just not nearly as physically developed yet, but he has a lot in common with his pressure and stuff. And I think that he has more potential offensively. So overall, I think I'm in a place where I say there's a lot of great pieces, but maybe there aren't enough foundational pieces. Now, when you look at Grady Dick's shot chart and you're confusing it for Scottie Barnes, it's largely because they're inverted right now. Everything that Scottie is doing, above the break and all that stuff, these are development reps. This is what you want from him. In the video yesterday where we said Scottie Barnes is flirting with superstardom, we broke down the distance on those threes. We looked at the difficulty of those threes. Some of them are contested. Some of them are off the dribble. Today on the panel, we were having a discussion about who are the scariest players in the league. And Mars Talks Sports, shout outs to Mars, mentioned Luka. And he said, why? And then, we were all confused, like, why Luka? And he's like, because he can shoot off the dribble. He can pull up off the dribble. He can take 2-3 dribbles and just pull it. And that's somehow that fear factor, that sort of bang factor that has can be very destabilizing for the defense, very demoralizing. Well, that's what Scottie's trying to develop right now, right? Is the pull-up 3. We're not doing catch and shoot stuff necessarily anymore. He's still part of it, but a lot of it is different. When you look at Jacoby Walter's tape, Okay. Now, I was looking at his tape today. I studied all his tape today. It was a very fantastic use of 2.5 hours. I got to tell you, Jacoby is blowing me away. Blowing me away. I think this guy is like a permanent staple for the Toronto Raptors for like the next 7 years. I would keep this guy like I am so much higher on him than I was on rookie Terrence Ross. It's not even funny. Typically, if you follow my basketball takes, you know I don't typically like players like Jacoby. I don't usually like inefficient shot makers like Cam Thomas, guys like that. I'm not usually a big fan. Jalen Green. The difference with Jacoby and those guys is Jacoby plays defense. Now we're talking about a different class of player. Now we're talking way, way differently into like the Latrell Sprewell, Devin Booker sphere as opposed to the one-dimensional, inefficient shot chucker. Right now, he is pretty much positive inside the arc and abysmal outside the arc. What happens when the range catches up? Because he's been a good shooter. His whole life, he's been a good shooter, and his shot is butter smooth. There's no hitch in his shot. And it's like what you look for is what you find. When Jonathan Mobo, I don't know if y'all remember, do y'all remember the open practice where Jonathan Mobo airballed the three and William Liu came out and he was just like, oh, this is embarrassing, blah, 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 blah. Do y'all remember that? And I made a video saying like it's embarrassing to react to open practice, like to take too many conclusions away from open practice and that Jonathan Mobo is going to be fine because his mechanics are fine. In the end, you have to look at the physics of shooting. The physics of shooting come down to three things. Number one, are you willing to take them? When you're missing them, are you willing to take them? Number two, what is your size? Like, yeah, a slow set release might be an issue for a 6'2" guard. It's probably not going to be a huge issue for a 6'11" player, So what are the physics of you? And then number three is what are your mechanics and how consistently are you able to replicate them? So as long as those three boxes check out and I don't see any issues with your shooting, I'm going to trust your shooting long term. Jamison Battle has a very weird release. Peja Stojakovic had a very unorthodox release. I'm going to tell you something that a shooting coach shared with me one time, one of the best shooting coaches in the world who happens to be my friend. And he said, no two shooters shoot exactly the same. And I believe that to be 100% true. Like there's always subtle differences in the way certain guys shoot. You can try to pattern your shot after certain players or whatever. I think Jacoby shoots a very pure basketball, just like I don't necessarily, I'm not that worried about Grady's percentages. Grady's percentages don't scare me at all. Right. Macklin saying Jacoby doesn't move like a rookie with the ball. Facts, man. Facts. His game is very mature. It's got a lot of wiggle. It's got a lot of like refined skill work to it. He's not really dunking the basketball over guys. He's not really catching his shit in transition. It's not a lot of catch and shoot stuff. Like occasionally he'll do a catch and shoot three, but a lot of his possessions that I looked at, I went through every one of his possessions this year because there just aren't that many because he hasn't played enough. Like he's doing almost all of this off dribble, like self-created. That is so different than what Grady's doing. Grady is not cooking guys off the dribble. Grady is coming off a dribble handoff, throw a head dribble, one step, fade away. Grady is a movement shooter. Jacoby is a scorer. And movement shooters and scorers play very well together. So to anybody who's thinking about starting an RJ Scottie like beef between Jacoby and Grady, shut the hell up with that one. These two are going to be synergistically very well matched together. Also, it really helps that Jacoby projects to be a really good defender. I don't know if what I'm more impressed with, his offense or his defense. The Raptors have stolen this pick. Like they are so good. Like wait till you see the film breakdown today or tomorrow. Sorry, tomorrow or the next day. Like I think you're going to be really shocked at how well this kid is doing, and he's been doing it, at the G League level. I think people are a little bit low on him because he was the 19th overall pick, but really, it's a very stupid reason to be low on somebody because they were the 19th overall pick, because they were the 31st overall pick, 45th overall pick. Who cares where you were drafted? Where you were drafted is only ever a reflection of how people felt on you on a certain day in June. Who cares how they felt about you in June? There are certain players, you draft them in June, top 5, and I swear by September, you've seen them in an NBA uniform. You see them go through their first training camp. You see them in summer league, and you wish you hadn't drafted them. I'd much rather the player that is 31st pick, and by the time September rolls around, people are wishing they'd picked them in the first round. I much prefer that player. Players grow at random places, and I've never understood this obsession with draft order Like yesterday, I believe Jacoby should have finished the game over Grady Dick because I think he had a much, much better game. The advanced box score reflects that. Eye test reflected that Grady was not good last night, defensively or offensively. And Darko decided to stay with a hot hand. And someone in the chat said, well, it's because, Grady's the lottery pick. Who cares? Who cares? 13th pick, 19th pick. Who cares? I don't care about that at all. Now, for the record, I think both players are going to be very good players. I really do. I have a lot of faith long term in both Grady and Jacoby. A lot of faith in most of these young players. But this leads me to the bigger point of what would another blue chipper look like? Now, I'm not saying like there's many Scottie Barnes in the world, but could you imagine another Scottie Barnes? No, this is not an invitation to draft Cooper Flag. But what I'm saying is, can you imagine another player that talented just coming onto the team for nothing next year, right? Just for your pick. Can you imagine another Jonathan Mobo coming with that second round pick, maybe in the form of a point guard? The talent suddenly becomes so much better. Now, because the Raptors are very young, they're a very young team, and they're in a conference surrounded by either really bad teams or really old teams. I do believe that the proper development this year, which means more reps for Jacoby, more reps for Grady, maybe some on ball creation reps for Grady, maybe a little bit more playmaking responsibilities for RJ Barrett. Like let's boost the part of his game that's going really well, and let's minimize the part of this game that's not going super well, right? Maybe some minutes later down the line for Ulrich and Jonathan Mobo to actually start as you start to shut down guys like Jakob Pertl. Again, once you remove the big elephant in the room, which is Scottie Barnes All NBA consideration, once you remove that, there are no more barriers to tank. I think barriers to tank are very important. When you understand the NBA, you understand that this is a game of relationships, and you don't burn relationships with your star player when they have All NBA on the line because you want to tank. You just don't do that, especially if you're the Toronto Raptors. Once All NBA is off the table, all bets are off. You can ask Scottie to do whatever. You can say, Scottie, we are going to cut your minutes. We're going to cut your minutes to 30 because you have lost eligibility for All NBA. All-Star window has passed. If Scottie Barnes ends up missing 2 to 4 weeks, certainly he will miss the 6 games that would be required. If you're unfamiliar, the new CBA has a rule where in order to be eligible for All NBA or MVP or any season awards, you have to play at least 65 games. Scottie has already missed 11 games. He probably missed 6 more. And now, we're in New Year and the eligibility is gone. And if the Raptors are indeed as bad as I think they're going to be, over that stretch, it's over. So I want to do one final thing with y'all while I'm here. And I would like to look at team record all time and see just how poorly the Toronto Raptors started out the various seasons in which they picked high in the lottery. And I want to specifically look at a few seasons. And let's just go here one second. Okay. So I'm going to pull myself. Oh, I'm not lagging. I'm not lagging. I am lagging. I am lagging. No, I'm not lagging. Okay. This is a constant battle. Lag, no lag. Okay, cool. Okie doke. So the last time they were really bad was 2020. Well, 2021. Let's see how they started out that season. Look at the game log. Where the hell is the game log? Here we go. Sorry, missed it. Okay. So the Toronto Raptors after 22. So let's say that season started late, right? Yeah, that was a late season start. It started on Christmas. Wow. Okay. So the Toronto Raptors were 8-12, which they have not even sniffed this year. They were the year they tanked for Scottie, they were 17-17. That's incredible. They were 17-17. And then they went on this phenomenal losing streak and ended the season 27-45, which was good for the 7th worst record. And they ended up going with Scottie Barnes. Okay. I'm actually going to make this bigger. I'm going to make myself smaller since I'm clearly lagging. Let's get out of this. Okay. So just a little bit of browsing here. Now we're going to have to go way back for the last time the Raptors were actually bad. But let's see the year that they tanked for the year that they almost tanked, but then ended up starting We the North instead. And that was 2013, 2014. So let's just check that season out. I'm trying to say I think this is up there with the worst starts in Raptors history. And we'll also look at the year they drafted Chris Bosh and Andrea Bargnani. So hang on one second. Here we go. So it's this year. Schedule and results. Okay. So they started. So right now the Raptors are 7-18. The year they drafted, so the year they started We the North, they started 6-12, and then they turned around their season at 6-12. So that season clearly was not as bad. Now let's look at the Bosch and Bargnani years, and those were like the tank years in Toronto Raptor land, right? The Bosch and Bargnani years. So the Bargnani year was 05-06. Let's check that out. 05-06 Toronto Raptors schedule and results. The Toronto Raptors that year started out 1-10, 1-11. Oh my goodness, that was bad. I remember that year. That was the first year of Jose Calderon. Okay, so they started that year out 3-17. Wow, holy shit. So when did they get to the point where, yeah, they were 4-17. The Raptors are currently 7-18. They were 7-22. So the Raptors would have to lose the next 4 games in order to get to the point where they were when they drafted Andrea Bargnani. They ended that season 27-55, winning a whole bunch of meaningless games at some point. I think they won. Yeah, here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I mean, they won the lottery that year, so you can't really complain too much, but they did win some meaningless games there. Okay. The year they drafted Scottie Barnes, we already looked at that. Okay. And let's check out the year that they drafted Chris Bosh, because I do think that that was a very important year in terms of they had the third worst record in the league that year. They finished the season 24-58. Okay. Let's see how they started that season. They started the season 7-13. So better than we are right now. And then they went on a tremendous losing streak. So they got 8 wins. So they were 8-16. That's better than our record right now. And then they went on this crazy losing streak. And that's pretty much what knocked them out. Then they won back to back against Minnesota and Washington, proceeded to lose, ended up with the third worst record in the league. Okay. And that was a final loss against the Cleveland Cavaliers, the tankathon, because the Cleveland Cavaliers were also horrific that year. And they finished the season with 24. You know, it's interesting because before the lottery odds were weighted, you almost think to yourself, if the Raptors could have just been a little bit worse, they might have gotten Carmelo Anthony. If they could have been a lot worse, they might have gotten LeBron James. We don't know. Or maybe the league was always going to rig that for the Cleveland Cavaliers. Anyways, I thought it was interesting to just kind of look at the tanking history of the Toronto Raptors overall, just to kind of see like where we are right now. We are in we're between the rock and a hard place right now in terms of where we go from here, but I don't think that it's bad. I really don't. Like, I would think it's bad if I'll tell you a couple of things that would make this season bad. Number one, if your young players were really just lemons, right? I'd be like, oh my God, here we go again. You have all these development reps that you need, and you're just not going to get them, because these players are terrible. It's more Malik Williams and more Mohamed Gay and more DJ Carton minutes and more Jamias Ramsey minutes and more Jonte Porter, parlay bets. Like, it's unfortunate that that's how last season went. That's not how this season is going to go. Now, what's important to realize is that in terms of impact on winning, Jacoby is not going to impact winning that much more right now than Jamias Ramsey. He is, however, a way better player than Jamias Ramsey, and it's possible to be a way more talented player and a way better player and not really impact winning all that much. It's perfectly possible to do that, right? And that's what you need, right? You need players who are able to do good things on the basketball court without directly really leading to winning. There was a league executive today who came out with a quote about DeMar DeRozan and said, I think he's a fine player. I think he's a very good scorer, but I don't think he leads to winning. I don't think necessarily his production leads to winning. Now, if you look at DeMar DeRozan's shot chart, it is ridiculous how efficient that dude is. When you watch his bag work, you see how the players around the league really like him and support him and really revere him as this hardworking, excellent, craftsman. All of that can be true, and you can still be a neutral, impact type of player. Because when you give up 22 points on the other end that wouldn't have been given up with you on the bench, and you get 25 points, you're not really contributing that significantly to winning. A player like OG Anunoby has contributed way more to winning this year than DeMar DeRozan has, right? But when you watch them play, it's very obvious that DeMar is more talented and more enjoyable to watch than OG. Would you agree? Like who necessarily even appreciates OG's game but sickos like me, right? But when you watch a DeMar DeRozan, and I think that conversation lends itself very well to players like RJ Barrett, like Grady Dick right now to some extent, and Jacoby Walter, and you could also look at a player like Davion Mitchell. Davion Mitchell is very competitive defensively. He's very fun to watch. He rallies up the crowd, obviously a fan favorite, but doesn't really impact winning all that much right now at all. I think actually he's had negative win shares almost every single year. He has negative win shares this year for sure. Okay. So he is not impacting winning. In fact, he's helping you lose. Right. And it's the same thing with RJ Barrett to some extent. I'm saying like RJ is helping you win, but not enough. You know what I mean? You saw his shot chart. You see how inefficient he is. If I show you RJ's shot chart next to Zach LaVine's shot chart, and people feel the way they feel about Zach LaVine, he's an empty calories player, but he's so much more efficient than RJ. So when you take all that into context and you add in the bad defense, you're like, okay, high turnovers, low efficiency, bad defense, high volume. That's a perfect player to help you lose basketball games. There's an old quote that says every player has a top scorer, right? This is what our high school coach used to say, which is every team in the world has a top scorer. Not all of them help their teams win. And I think you all, if you've ever played basketball competitively, whether it was Division 1, Division 2, high school, or whatever, you all know that there was, this type of player who maybe, dragged possessions, maybe slowed the game down a little bit, didn't necessarily make everybody better, kind of gave a lot on defense, maybe didn't give enough effort on defense, wasn't great on the glass, but they could shoot, or they could score, or they could cook, or they had a bag, or they were very interesting to watch. They were very skilled. We used to play with a guy like that called Bobblehead. I used to call him Bobblehead, and he was just like a lot of nothing. He can cook, he can dribble, he can put the ball through his legs, he can hit step back fadeaways. People used to compare him to Allen Iverson, but he didn't really ever impact winning. He was never really a winning player. I'll tell you the players who are really driving winning on this team. Jakob Poeltl, that's one. Jonathan Mobo, that's two. Jamison Battle, that's three. That's about it. Scottie Barnes. Like these are the players who are really actively driving winning. I mean, you'll win one by osmosis every 12, 13 games you play because some team just has bad shooting. You have good shooting. You get a really great performance. But when you're super inconsistent, you don't really play defense, you're not going to see the wins, right? But you're seeing an entertaining basketball product. What was wrong with the Raptors tank last year is very, very painful to watch. There wasn't no young players to root for. That's not going to be the case this year. You have a lot of young players to root for. And, I think the Raptors are in a great place. I really do. You know, Quickly helps in a lot of ways, right? Like, I would say 80% of your basketball impact is what do you do when you don't have the basketball, right? 20% of it, which is unfortunately the 20% that people really, really focus in on, is what you do when you do have the basketball, right? So you'll sometimes see Jonathan Mobo stop short on a sprint to allow a lane for an RJ Barrett drive. You'll sometimes see Scottie pop to the corner to allow a wider angle for a Davion Mitchell curl. You'll often see Jakob Poeltl holding his guy after he sets the screen to allow a cleaner release for Grady Dick. Now, none of these plays involve the player that I mentioned having the basketball. They're just doing smart things without the basketball. And that's since that's 80% of what you're doing, right? A lot of that is defense too, right? Not everything comes down to like Fred VanVleet had a lot of limitations defensively, but he was a fantastic team defender, right? He was rarely ever caught off guard by what the defense was trying to do. He just had physical limits to what he could what the offense was trying to do. So he would read situations very well. He would calculate his gambles very well. He was positionally sound. He had pretty competent, numbers guarding the post for a really small guy. He had active hands. He would tip the basketball really well. He was just sound. He didn't leak oil everywhere. Yeah, when he was injured in the playoffs, that's a different story. But there's a reason why the analytics love Fred VanVleet on defense because he's always found a way to be effective. He does things on the court without the basketball that really help. There's another thing which is spacing. Yesterday, a friend of mine who's a basketball scout, I guess he hadn't watched a single Raptors game this year because he's out in Oakland and he's a pro scout and he texted me at halftime. He said, "Y'all have the worst spacing in the NBA." And he's a pro scout. And I was just like kind of dumbfounded because I don't really know what to say to that. I don't necessarily know if it's the worst in the league, but it's pretty bad. It's pretty bad. And it's because you have a lot of players who don't do a hell of a lot without the basketball. A lot. They don't know enough or they can't. They simply cannot, right? Ochai Abaji is pretty decent. Ochai Abaji is driving winning too. I forgot to mention him as well. He's also contributing to winning in a pretty significant way. Grady's getting there towards neutral impact, right? RJ is getting there towards neutral impact. But RJ Barrett has more in common with Jordan Poole and Zach LaVine than he does Devin Booker and Donovan Mitchell, right? There's scales and balances to this. Can he become more efficient? Sure. Let's hope. Can he become a better defender? Yes. Is he way better as a playmaker today than he was, like two years ago? Oh my God, yes. That part of his game has come such a long way, right? Such a long way. So maybe this is something we can continue to develop. With Scottie out, maybe you start RJ at the point and just let him do it. Let him rack up those turnovers. It's going to cost you a ton of wins, but at least get those reps up, man. A secondary ball handler who's 6'6", who can actually like play make and create. Like if you change the archetype, right? What did New York try to use RJ Barrett as? This all comes down to archetypes, right? Role archetype optimization. What did what did New York try to use RJ Barrett as? They tried to use him as OG Anunoby, which is a very poor, half court, grinded out 3-and-D. That's what they wanted him to be. They didn't want to let him run in transition. They didn't want him to have the basketball in his hands too much because that was Jalen Brunson and Julius Randle. And unfortunately, RJ really was poor in New York. I mean, don't duck it, don't run from it. The numbers are the numbers, and they were bad. But he's been so much better with Toronto, largely because I think they are floating into a different archetype. And that different archetype is not OG Anunoby. They're not trying to turn him into OG Anunoby and Lou Dort and trying to turn him into PJ Tucker or any sort of corner spacing type of threat. What they're trying to turn him into is a dynamic on-ball player. A player who can create offense, a player who can potentially handle secondary usage, a player who could potentially be a number 2 option on a pretty good team, provided you have good defense around them. Imagine an RJ Barrett on a team like Orlando. Could he drive offense a little bit better than Jalen Suggs right now? Hell yeah. Would he be more valuable to the Orlando Magic right now than what KCP is? Yes, because you have enough defense to compensate for any of his shortcomings defensively. I am positive that at some point you're going to have to evaluate this. And as the Raptors, you're going to say, have we boosted his trade value like 80% since we got him? Because I think you have. I see the way the people around the league are talking about RJ Barrett is very different. There's a lot of people who are, I think Josh Hart said yesterday he's playing like an all-star right now. I hope some GM out there believes that. At some point, I don't know whether the Raptors are going to trade RJ Barrett or if they want to trade RJ Barrett or if they see the long-term fit with RJ. But we've talked about it ad nauseum on this channel. At some point, someone's got to get better defensively, or you're never going to be a good team. So we'll see if that's going to be RJ, if that's going to be Grady. And again, right now it seems inconceivable that you would trade Grady Dick or RJ Barrett or Immanuel Quickley. But it seemed inconceivable with the young guns that you would ever trade Sonny Weems or you would let Sonny Weems walk. It seemed inconceivable that you would ever lose an Amir Johnson or a DeMar DeRozan. The young guns were everything in Toronto. Ed Davis. I mean, shit, these guys all got traded. Nobody on this team is above getting traded except for Scottie. That's just the one guy who I'm like guaranteed they're not touching. Beyond that, I think some tough conversations can be had about roster fit and optimization, but at some point you're going to have to fix the spacing. And I think you're going to get a lot of look at Jacoby. I am inclined to say that Jacoby and Grady are really just very neck and neck for me right now. I can understand why some people think that Grady has the higher upside and stuff, but I just think Jacoby, Grady, Mobo, like these guys are just like great, like right there as rotation players. Ochai to a lesser degree, but still there. You have real pieces right now where you make one smart trade, two more smart draft picks next year, your home court advantage. I am very convinced that the Raptors are going to be a fantastic team next year. This year, let it go, man. I think I'm ready to just say if Scottie's diagnosis comes back tomorrow and it's like 3 weeks, it's just you're done. It's over, right? You might put on a miracle, but it's like at what end, right? Like Country Kong saying this is Jacoby's team now. Okay, sure. I think he can be a very, very valuable bench scorer as early as next year. I think he's a guy who can come off the bench, give you good spacing, good defense, really competent rebounding from that guard position, and then just like some, you know what I mean? Like I don't want to compare him to Gary Trent Jr. because he's so different than Gary. He is like he's like a more athletic, way better upside, defensive, rebounding version of Gary. You know what I mean? If he can figure out 37, 38% three-point shooting, now we're sitting at like, okay, he might be one of the three best players picked in this draft. But he's really good. He's really good. And I understand that he's not necessarily like the same vertical athlete that, Zach LaVine and guys like this are, but he is cut from the same cloth of like scorer. You know what I mean? Like he has a little bit of DeMar DeRozan in his game, a little bit of Latrell Sprewell, a little bit of Paul Pierce, a little bit of Bradley Beal, a little bit of, Devin Booker. Like I see so many touches of some of the better scoring guards in the league in him. And again, him doing this as a rookie with all the strength he still needs to put up. Oh my God. Go look at KCP as a rookie. Go look at Devin Booker as a rookie. Go look at these guys as a rookie. They all struggled immensely. So RJ's value is low. His portability isn't great. So most teams are like, meh. I agree with you. I don't necessarily think he has like some super high value, but right now I'm looking at him and I'm looking at Pascal Siakam and I'm like, man, if he can get his shooting numbers up, he's not that far off from Pascal Siakam. Pascal Siakam just netted you 3 first-round picks and he netted himself a max contract. What's the gap right now between Pascal and current RJ? Now, I don't want to compare 2017, 2019, 2020 Pascal to current RJ because that's not a fair comparison. But right now, RJ versus Pascal Siakam, who would I rather have? RJ at 27 million on 2 years left, or Pascal at 45? I'll take RJ. Actually, I would. Right now, I would take RJ. I know that Pascal probably contributes to winning just a little bit more, but that contract value in conjunction with the age, I'll take RJ over him. How many picks would Orlando give with Isaac? I think you're getting picks with Isaac. I honestly think Jacoby was surprised with his passing, has great instincts. I completely agree with you. I think Jacoby Walter needs some on-ball reps. I think he's going to make some really good decisions. I think he's going to have some crazy high variance games. Like we are talking like one day he's going to be like negative 20 boxes minus. The next day he's going to be negative 12 boxes minus. The next day he's going to be 7 boxes minus. He's going to have a lot of high fluctuation. I have learned over a long period of time to not get too obsessed with the numbers. The numbers on Jacoby are horrible. I'm going to tell you that right now. The analytics hate him. The shooting percentages are terrible. The shooting splits are awful, but I'm watching the tape. And that's where it's like the eye test has to supersede. If you really trust your eyes, if you really know what you're watching, it's completely different. If you're a moron and you don't really understand what you're watching, now you're like, okay, I have to go on the analytics because I don't have 2 brain cells to be able to make my own decisions here. But no, I see exactly why he's struggling, where he's struggling. And I said it in the beginning of this year. He's a better passer than you realize. He's gonna be fine. He's gonna need a year. He has blown away my wildest expectations for how refined his game is, how efficient he is in the mid range. Again, small sample, hasn't played a ton of games, hasn't gotten a ton of minutes. But I think overall, like I see the pathway to him being like a legit NBA player. And don't take that for granted just because the guy's a 19th overall pick that they're all legit NBA players. Bruno Caboclo was a 20th overall pick. I think what was it? Jalen Hood Shafino. I mean, they haven't picked up his qualifying offer. He's going to be out of the league next year. Jalen Hood Shafino was a higher pick than Jacoby. So SP saying when Walter starts, he stabilizes the other four. I agree completely. Yuffie saying trade Ardrey to the Wolves for McDaniels. I don't think the Timberwolves say yes to that. Number one, if they did say yes to that, that's very interesting. That's a very interesting trade. I could see a deal like that. I think the issue here is that their defense is already not very good. Then again, yeah, I don't really think so. Rand saying, why do you think Grady is missing open threes? I think he's tired, man. I think that's part of it. I think he's rushing. I think the game hasn't slowed down enough for him. And most importantly, I think it's because he's leading the league almost every single day in distance traveled. He has to work so hard. His cardio and his conditioning and his body needs to catch up to it. I think he's taken a major step this year. One of the points that I brought up with Jonathan Mobo was trajectory. When I was evaluating him as a draft prospect, when I evaluated him post draft, I said, look at where he's come from 2022 to 2024. If this isn't a positive sign, I don't know what is. Well, look at where Grady has come from 2023 to 2024. Look at the last 2 years of Grady and tell me how big is a spike. Now, you can say he shouldn't have been as bad as he was last year. Fine, but he's not that bad this year. He's actually very positive. And if you want to say, Grady has been inconsistent, yeah, I'll agree with you. 7 points one game, 27 points the next game. There's a lot of high variance, high fluctuation in his game. But since so much of his game is predicated on shooting and opportunity, it's not like, okay, he's getting a consistent diet of 16 shot attempts every single night. He's not. Some nights he's going to get 7. Some nights he's going to get 20. Take a lot. He has to keep hunting for his shot. The Raptors have to keep looking for him. He's a very good shooter, I think. LD saying, not a chance in hell Minnesota makes the trade. Tariq saying, I believe Scottie will be back in a week because he had the same injury in the playoffs and came back a couple of days later. He's a fucking warrior. Okay, Tariq, I don't want to speak on Scottie's behalf or whatever. I'll guarantee you he's not coming back in a week. Number one, he came back before he was ready in the playoffs. I don't know how they let him do it. I was very worried for him. He was not ready to come back. And if you didn't realize it, he limped through game 4, game 5, and game 6. He was not right. He could barely move. They would never risk that type of, him coming back like that for a regular season game. It's just not going to happen. Now, the blessing in disguise here, if you're not pro tank, is that, hey, he's going to miss 3 to 4 games potentially if he's back in a week and a half to 2 weeks because the Raptors have such a light schedule over the next 12 days. But the downside of that is these are all the games you have to win. Now, we outlined, the season schedule ahead and we were like, okay, this is the must win. This is the must win. This is the must win. Well, congrats. You took care of Indiana. You took care of the game that you were supposed to win, right? You took care of those 2 games at home where you were supposed to win. You lost the 3 games you were probably supposed to lose. And when you start to look at it, you're like, okay, the Miami and Chicago games, you got to come out of this with at least 1 win. I'm saying right now, you go 0 for 2 there. Like the writing is just, it's done. Like this is the easy part. If you go 0 and 3 against Chicago, Miami, and Brooklyn, now you're just toast. Okay, there's no more faith. There's no more wait for Immanuel Quickley because the minute Immanuel Quickley comes back, there's going to be an adjustment period to him. There's going to be an adjustment period to Bruce, just like there's been an adjustment period with Kelly. And then now you're adjusting to playing without Scottie again. And then Scottie comes back and you're going to adjust to playing with Scottie. So it's just like there's constant disruptions to rhythm. Basketball teams get used to playing a certain way with certain guys, certain rotations, certain lineups. And if you really want to tank the season without technically tanking the season, All you have to do is introduce high variance lineups. All you have to do is put guys together who don't have a lot of minutes together. So if you want to fuck everything up, easy. Start Davion Mitchell. And that's not shade on Davion. Please understand. There's plenty of shade that has been thrown in Davion's way, but Davion just doesn't have necessarily a lot of chemistry with that unit. And so you start them. And so it sort of sub optimizes the unit. Now Grady and RJ's shot attempts are going to be harder because Davion Mitchell. And then of course, right now with Davion Mitchell talking all the mess that he's talking, maybe Davion Mitchell is about to come and just prove everybody wrong right now. Okay. Including myself. And say like he's going to start shooting 35 to 38%. I mean, he shot 37% from three for an entire season last year. How difficult is it for someone who shot 37% for a season from three in the NBA, who shot 40 plus percent from for an entire season at Baylor in his final year, which is why he got drafted top 10. How difficult would it be for that guy who just shot 2 for 2 last night to come out and just go on a heater and shoot like 42% for an entire month for the Raptors? Of course, it'd be possible. And if he starts shooting 42% with his defense, well, now like we're close to Ochai territory as a basketball player. Now you have two Ochais, one short, one taller. You know what I mean? So it changes the equation completely. But when you start playing Kelly Olynyk with four guys he hasn't had a lot of time to practice with, when you start to play Kelly Olynyk without proper rim protection, like last year, one of the biggest genius. Hold on. Focus. My camera went out of focus. I apologize. I wasn't trying to, help you read my palms. What I was saying was, man, I've lost my train of thought. By the way, I agree with your Twitter post that sports betting is ruining NBA. Yes. So shout outs to ESPN Needs IKD. Sent me a post yesterday of somebody effectively writing that Scottie Barnes had a tremendous impact on his parlay. And today I talked about it on the panel. The chat was not happy, but I don't really give a shit about the stupid chat on PC. No offense. Actually, all offense. Fuck them. If they're gonna say that I was wrong for saying that. And I talked about how Scottie Barnes effectively, is a human being who got injured, and there was some lunatic on X saying that because he cost him his money, that he wanted Scottie to have a career-ending injury. Now, there's always people like this on X, and I do worry about them in their day-to-day lives. What kind of a degenerate does it take for you to get on? Like, I cannot imagine saying that about somebody. No matter how much I dislike Fred VanVleet or Dennis Schroeder, I can never imagine like wishing them a career-ending injury. Like, what the fuck, And the issue being you didn't hit your parlay. So you took Scottie Barnes over, 6 assists and you didn't hit your parlay. So now Scottie's a bum. Scottie's terrible. And you can pretty much guarantee that any player who routinely underperforms parlays is usually very hated. That entire list of inconsistent players, those are the worst players to bet on in the NBA, right? By nature of the fact that they're inconsistent, their averages don't reflect their, second most common game. And so, if you took Fred VanVleet over 14 points and, he scores 6 that game, you're going to hate him, right? But there's certain players in the NBA where you can set a clock by them. They're pretty much, 17 to 24 almost every night. Sometimes it's 50, sometimes it's 16, but they don't go to 5. They don't go to 4, right? So a player like Scottie Barnes, who through the years, as sports betting has become more rampant, more popular across the league, has been wildly inconsistent. He had 2 points, 0 points, 4 points, 8 points in his second year, but he also had like 30 points. So he's a wildly inconsistent player in his second year. And I think a lot of people who bet on sports, especially on a night where the Raptors were the only team playing, like they and the Knicks were the only team playing last night, I think anyone who bet on Scottie Barnes last night probably was really upset. And I just don't care. I don't care about your parlay. I don't care about your bets. I don't care how much money you lost. If you lost you lost your daughter's college tuition because Scottie Barnes didn't finish the game and you hate him now for life and you're wishing him death. That's not his problem. That's your problem. And if you have that kind of relationship with sports betting, I suggest you stop. I sincerely do. This is a big reason why we will never push sports betting on this channel ever. It will never happen. I don't care if I'm destitute. I don't care if I'm homeless. I don't care if I'm broke. I don't care if I'm dying. I will not do it. There's certain things in this world that I have just struck off as I'm never going to do that. That's one of those things where I'm never going to do it. And I wish that more platforms would take that stance. Unfortunately for me, I am now on a platform that is sponsored by a sports betting thing. So I just kind of have to grin there and take it. And I'm not against anybody's right to do that. I'm not. I'm not one of those people that's going to stand outside a fur factory and then every single person who comes out, I'm going to throw like fake blood on them. I'm not that person. I'm just someone who is going to observe my own behavior and say, if I am against this, then I will control what I can control, which means that any person who's willing to listen to me on this, I'll guarantee you it is making the experience worse. It is making the game worse. It is making the fan relationship to players worse. It is making probably your mental health worse. It's not good for you. It's not productive. You will not win. You are not beating Vegas. And more likely than not, you're going to lose a tremendous amount of money doing this stuff. Okay. There are certain people that I know that are into the analytics, into the numbers. They spend days upon days upon days. Every single week, they're spending 30, 40 hours crunching the numbers. Those people are beating the odds significantly. You know, if the average person is, I think, what did they say? The best a person can do is like 54%. I know people who can do 60%, but they are rare. They are extremely smart. And I think that it is important to realize they are also extremely talented at this. It's important to be really good at this. Okay. And that's not an invitation for you to try to become good at this. There are plenty of things in this world to get good at. This doesn't necessarily have to be your calling. If you do it as enjoyment, cool. You want to bet a dollar every now and again? You know, my mom used to buy lottery tickets. She used to buy, I think, like $1 to $2 every single week. It was a fun little fantasy of hers that what if we win $1 million and we get out of the projects and we get out of government housing? That is a fantasy that, you know, necessarily I don't buy scratch lotteries. I don't buy lottery tickets. That's not my I know the numbers, man. I cannot get over the numbers. Now, here's something fantastically funny for y'all. As much as I am against sports betting, gambling, etc., okay, do you know that I have gambled before? Let me share that with you. 3 times. 3 times in my life that I have gambled. One was rather by force, almost, okay, where I was working at Harlequin Books and I was working front desk at Harlequin Books back in 2008. And there was a, I want to say 2008, 2009, 2009, early 2009. It might have 2009. It was 2009, January, February, something like that. And it was right after my mom had passed away. And we had a person who was working like caretaking there. And then there was a superintendent and they wanted to go half, like thirds. They wanted to split thirds on a $48 million like lotto 649. I think the jackpot was 48 million. And I said, no, I don't believe in that. I think people who do it are idiots, blah, blah, blah. But they were just like, come on, Rob, it's just $2, you know, buy a ticket, buy a ticket, buy a ticket. So it kind of forced me. And one day, my friend Max, who I pretty much owe for this win, he said, I'm going to buy your coffee today so that you can buy a ticket. So he kind of forced me into buying one. And lo and behold, we got 5 numbers and I think we got like $5,000. That was my first, last, and only time ever contributing to the lottery, Ontario lottery. So that's the first one. The second one was we went to Niagara Falls and like an absolute moron, I decided that I was just going to sit there and play roulette, which is the dumbest game on earth. But you know, I was just like, whatever. I have $20. Let's see what I can turn my $20 into. I turned it to $300 and I eventually turned it to $0. And no, it was $20. So I turned it back to $20. So I turned my 20 into 312. And then I turned it right back down to 20. I cashed out and I was like, great. Got a little bit of entertainment out of it. I didn't lose any money. And then it was like 2 a.m. and my friend Ike and I, we were just like, we were at our hotel room. The girls had gone home and we were just like, you know what? Let's go find the other casino in Niagara Falls and let's just bet whatever we have left. It was $20. And then at that point, I turned my $20 into another $300. This time I didn't bet it away. So I consider myself the rare person who actually beat not only The lottery, where my mom spent hundreds and hundreds of dollars, into the lottery over the years and probably won at most $10. I bought one ticket and I believe that that was a winning ticket. And also like the gambling. I have decided that I've retired from it. I'm like, you know what? To the end of my life, I'm going to be able to say I didn't lose money on this stupid thing that kills people's, budgets. I used to do financial advising. I know a lot of people who had this addiction towards sports betting before it was legal. I know people now that have constant addiction. And if you ever want to see what sports betting does to a person's enjoyment of the game, please check out like what happened on playback when Player's Choice had some money riding on their, on their gambling thing, and they had like a parlay, and one of the parlays was LeBron has to get a bunch of turnovers. And you will see how much people were like, "Come on, that was a turnover." Now, you can say that the dopamine hit of that, which is to say like the excitement or the brain stimulation of that is great, but is it healthy, right? Like, is everything just about getting high? If it is, then just pop pills, shoot needles. Like, what's the point? You know, the issue with dopamine is it comes down to an expectation and a reward. And it's very, very difficult to turn your brain back once you've gone too far right. I'll give you the example. Maybe I shouldn't even be talking about this, but if there are kids in the room, put them away. Pornography, right? When you look at internet pornography and how much it has become just so prevalent and so extreme and so accessible. And have you ever stopped to wonder why it's free? Have you ever stopped to wonder why so much of it is available everywhere? There's a reason for that. It kills your brain, it kills your motivation, it kills your critical thinking. All of these things are designed to destroy you. Your diet is destroying you. Your sports betting addiction is destroying your love for the game because it's turning it into something that it's not. And then once you remove the sports betting, the problem is, so like let's just say you're one of those people that likes to ride $100 parlay every single night. No, 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 fuck that. Let's say you are one of those people that's just like, no, 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 Rob. I'm only going to bet $1 or $2 every single night, like a responsible lunatic. Okay. So now you're going to bet $2. But I guarantee you the first time you hit like a 6-leg parlay, you're going to sit there and be like, well, if I'd only bet $100, I would have made 1,000. So now you're going to start needing more and more. Right. So now you start betting more and more. And at some point, you're going to realize you have a problem, especially after your cold streak. You're going to stop betting. And then you are going to come to the realization that you have a problem. And then you're going to try to remove it. You're going to try to remove sports betting from your enjoyment of sports, at which point you are going to miss it because now you realize it's not as exciting without it. But hear me when I say this. I get more enjoyment from watching a basketball game than you do with $1,000 riding on it. I'll bet you anything because the game is still very pure for me. It's very pure for me. It doesn't, there's no money, there's no parlays. I don't give a shit how many shots you miss, how many turnovers you get, how many threes you hit, how many steals you get. I'm not sitting there like, RJ, come on, one steal, one rebound. I don't need to be a degenerate to enjoy the game of basketball. Game of basketball is very fun. It's a sport. It's recreational. It's escapism for some people. It's highly analytical for some people. But I just want to say, you do what you got to do with your life. I know that some people in this community definitely do, gamble. But when it stops being fun, please stop. And if you try to stop and you lose the enjoyment of the game, I promise if you stick with it, your enjoyment of the game will come back as your dopamine levels resettle in your brain. Okay. But if you have ever felt the need to wish death, deportation, career ending injuries onto a player for missing your parlay or messing up with your money, stop, relax, breathe, seek help, call a toll free number, get yourself checked out. It's not healthy. It's not good. It's ruining your enjoyment of the game. I promise you that. It is not good for you. Okay. Nothing addictive is good for you. Nothing. Everything in balance, right? My grandmother, my mom always used to tell me everything in moderation, right? When it comes to social media addiction, when it comes to pornography addiction, when it comes to gambling addiction, when it comes to alcoholism, when it comes to drugs, There is no moderation because the whole fucking thing is designed to sink you. Okay. You just have to come to a realization that there are very many things in this world that are designed to destroy you. And then there are very few things in this world that are designed to empower you. You need to sink more time into things that are building you up and less time into things that are tearing you down. Okay. That's my whole spiel. Okay. Facts. And this is why I really like you. You, just real. Keep doing what you're doing. Who else can I be? Everybody else is taken, right? All right. I'm gonna talk to y'all later. I hope good results for Scottie tomorrow. And yeah, I'm looking forward to the rest of the season. I'm not one of those people who's gonna be like, oh, Scottie's not playing. Oh, the Raptors are fucking bums. No, man. There's a lot of good players on this team. Can't wait to see Jonathan Mobo get more touch with the basketball. Can't wait to see if Jacoby Walter will flash more and more as he goes on, if his shot will start falling. Can't wait to see if RJ Barrett rounds out his efficiency. Can't wait to see if some of the defensive improvements. Can't wait to see if Davion Mitchell and Jamal Shed start making some shots and, shoring up the Raptors' point of attack. What I am positive about is that 12 months from now, mark this video down, 12 months from now, I guarantee, Charles Barkley, guarantee that the Raptors will be a good team. Good team. Okay. All right. Noble Venom with the super chat. Wondering if you caught AJ DeBonce on first take to announce his decision. He just has that energy of that guy when listening to him talk. Can I devote the final 5 minutes of this live to just tell you how much I love AJ DeBonce? So there's 3 players that I can think of over the last 20 years that I have loved. Okay. When I say love, I mean love those players. Would build a franchise around them, would guarantee you first day, they are first ballot Hall of Famers, 100%, no questions asked, nothing stopping them other than career ending injury. Number 1, Kevin Durant. Number 2, Scottie Barnes. Number 3, this man right here, AJ DeBonce. AJ is fucking sick. Okay. I have been evaluating prospects for a very long time. He is the best high school basketball player I have seen since LeBron James. He is great. Okay. Every scout I've ever talked to about him loves him. The people who covered him, the people who know him, the people who are around him, trainers who've been around him since Utah say this kid is nonstop, relentless. His dad is friggin' awesome. I really care about who's around you. I'm gonna be honest, like I really care about the people around you, your social network, your fuck. 4. Okay, Wemby 2. 4. My bad. 4. Okay. Yes. Those are the 4 players. And those are the 4 players where pre-draft, I was like, this is real 100%. Lock it, seal it, put it in the bag. Right. It is important to realize that AJ is extremely hard worker, extremely fluid athlete, a growing playmaker. He is 6'9.5" ish. He's chosen to go to BYU for the right reasons, in my opinion. On ESPN First Take, he mentioned that, because he'd idolized Kevin Durant, ironically, coming into that process, KD spoke very well about BYU head coach. So, he's decided to go there. Good preparation, good head on his shoulders, good family. Again, getting to know the people around Scottie was a huge part of why I was so high on Scottie. Getting to know a lot about the people around AJ is a huge reason why I'm high on AJ. Now, unless something really phenomenal happens for the Raptors, like some crazy lottery luck, you're not going to get AJ DeBonce on the Raptors. So, more so, I'm announcing this to you more like a, hey, watch out for this guy in the NBA. Whatever team gets him is going to be really fucking lucky. Because I would take him over Cooper Flag. I would take him over Ace Bailey. I would take him over pretty much everybody. I think he's phenomenal. In the Victor Wembanyama draft, he'd be the number 2 pick, maybe, but it would be like the best number 2. He's like Len Bias, level, Michael Jordan, guys like that. Like, just can't miss. And, I don't know if he's the athlete that LeBron was, but he wants it, man. He wants it. Now, he likened his game to, I believe he compared himself to a Shea Gilgeous-Alexander meets Tracy McGrady. Yeah, so basically the best 2 guard in the league. He's coming, man. He's coming. Now, I guarantee you, like, There's a lot of different ways that his career could go. A lot of that will depend on situation, fit, what team he ends up on, injuries, all that stuff. But this guy will not cheat you on effort. He's built with the right stuff. He's coming from the right place, and his game is so good for a player his age. He is going to be an all-star like by year 2. Year 2. Okay? Yeah. Len Bias right after the drugs PSA, damn. I don't know if Len Bias had a drug problem, to be honest. From what I understand, it was pretty much the first time that he'd done it. And, he OD'd. Did he know what he was doing? Was he drunk? I have no idea. But tragic, gone too soon. But Len Bias was a hell of a college player. We will never know what he would have been as an NBA player. Tragedy, lost too soon. But yes, you're right. All that. Okay. I'll talk to y'all later. Thank you for tuning in, and look out for that Jacoby video either tomorrow or the next day. And let me know in the comments. I was thinking about something. Let me know if this would be a good idea. Would y'all be open to e-transfer suggestions? So what I was thinking was, a lot of Patreon creators, what they do is they have like, you select the next video if you become like a major level patron or whatever. If you're like $100 a month person, you get like one video a year or something like that. So what if we created a situation where if you wanted a video made about a specific topic, like, I don't know, Jakob Poeltl's pick and roll defense, if you really want a video about that, would we be able to create some sort of system where you can just request a video for a certain price? I don't know. I don't know if that's scammy. I have no idea if does that come off as like money grabby? I don't know. But I was thinking about that a lot because there are a lot of people who send like crazy donations, and I'm just like, okay, like I would love to be able to give these people something for it. I don't know. So yeah, I was thinking about that. Anyways, okay, I'll talk to y'all later. Have a good one. Enjoy your evening, and enjoy the in-season tournament, which is going to be really fun. The Dallas Mavericks against the OKC Thunder. Can't wait to see that. Talk to y'all later. Bye.